Who the Wild Things Are with Ryan McGuire.
You gotta listen to your body.
Oh my God, maybe, I could get out there, I could do this.
Let's take a ride, find your wild side, real stories, see with your own eyes.
It's so beautiful.
I'm gonna have the best time out here.
Yeah, I was in tears. I was like, that's the best, man.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Who the Wild Things Are. This is episode 25. I know we've been away for a little bit. I've been out in the woods, just enjoying the sunshine, hanging out in the mountains. But we're back on the grind and got a bunch of episodes coming up now. And today we have a very special one. Today we have my friend Ryan Kent. Ryan is the epitome of a hybrid athlete. We're going to get into exactly what that means, but Ryan is the current Hyrox North American champion. He's also holds a bunch of world records for DECA, which is another hybrid athletic competition. And Ryan's got a really cool story about where he's been and where he's going. So we're going to get him on here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And, yeah, we'll get this rolling. There he is.
What's up, man?
What's going on, dude?
Oh, just hanging out.
Sweet. You in the home gym?
Yeah, it's like the most quiet place I can go to around here.
Yeah, that's the dad life, right?
Yeah, we have our in-laws who stay here too. So there's just a lot going on.
Right on, man. Well, I appreciate you hopping on here with me. Been wanting to get you on here for a long time. I think you got a really cool story and big inspiration to a lot of people. So, yeah, super stoked to have you.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I think a good place to start, just for people maybe who don't live in our world, is just tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you've become known for.
So my name is Ryan Kent. I started off as like a Spartan race obstacle racer and just kind of ventured my way into this hybrid space, as we call it these days. But my athletic journey really started when I was like 4 years old. My dad ran marathons and things like that. He was a bodybuilder. So I've always been around endurance and always been around strength. And that was kind of like my identity growing up. I ran track and field and cross country, but I always loved lifting weights at the same time. But running was always kind of like the focal point, just because that's, what I was best at. And then, I stuck with it pretty much, after college was over. I just loved working out, and I continued to, run, 10, 15 miles on the weekends. But, then I'd go hit bench press on Mondays and biceps on Tuesdays. And, that was just what I enjoyed doing, that kind of training. And, lo and behold, a sport would, pop up that really kind of catered to that style of training that I've always enjoyed. And now we're just like, I'm running with it, as far as I can.
Right on, man. Yeah. So let's back up for 1 second there. I saw you post something the other day. You met my sister the other day, and you were posting something about your sister saying, you both kind of rolled into that world with your dad. And then there was kind of, there was like a fork in the road where you kind of stuck with it and she didn't. And I thought that was an interesting story. And I'm curious if is there something innate inside of you think that led you that direction? What was the difference there between how you guys looked at running?
I would like to say that I was probably just more passionate about the sport. I just enjoyed doing it more than she did. She, like you just mentioned, when she got to high school, she found that like hanging with her friends and, being on the cheerleading squad was more important than running, and I get that. But for me, like I said, I want to say it was passion, but I also felt like maybe I didn't have any other choice, like this was the one thing I was good at. And like, I don't know, like that, I had to go with that, like I wasn't good at, music or, like just anything, like running was kind of my thing. And I liked getting recognition for it. And so there's obviously some like selfish reasons in there as well. But yeah, I think it was just was just like I was good at something and it felt good to get recognized for it. So I continued to do it, where she just kind of wanted to be a normal teenager. And yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think sometimes that makes, like, for the greatest stories is when an individual has their back up against the wall and they feel like there's only one direction you can go to. And it's like this reckless abandon, because running is something that's so intense and miserable at times that you really have to have a very serious why behind all the training and the dedication.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's an interesting story. And I think yours took an interesting turn where you had taken the running thing as far as you could. And then, if I'm correct, kind of post-college, you made this kind of flip turn into Spartan, which is kind of a whole nother beast. How did that whole thing come about? How did you get involved in obstacle course racing?
Yeah, so like I said, after college, I was still running like a good amount just because I enjoyed it. Like it had been my identity, like I said, since I was like 4 years old. So even though I was no longer competing, I was still finding like local 5Ks and 10Ks to just like hop into to just test myself. But again, I was also, like I said, hitting the gym, doing the typical bodybuilding style stuff. This is all post-collegiately. And that was really what I was doing, was just like things that I enjoyed. I enjoyed lifting weights and I enjoyed running far. And then one day, a friend of mine who's also in kind of the fitness space, he reached out to me and was like, yo, there's this Spartan race coming to town, which was maybe like an hour away from where I lived at the time. And he was like, dude, I think you're going to be really good at this. It's endurance running, but you also have to be like really strong, and you're going to carry heavy sandbags and carry, buckets full of gravel. And I, immediately like went online and looked it up, and I was like, oh, like this is kind of sick. And I went and did that first race in Virginia, which was, I had about a 2-week notice. So there wasn't like a ton of prep time for it. It was just like, let's throw myself in there with the training I've been doing, which again was just like running and bodybuilding work. And I got my butt kicked in that first race, but I fell in love with it. I was like, man, that was awesome. And I think I could be really good at it if I devoted some time and came up with a plan to really get myself prepared for an event like that. And 3 months later, I went back and did my second Spartan race in South Carolina, and I beat out all of the Spartan Pro team that was there, and John Yatsko, who at the time was like on a freaking tear. I think he hadn't lost a Spartan race in quite a while. And when I beat him, that was kind of when everything changed. People started, hitting me up on Instagram and getting podcast interviews, and Spartan even asked me to join like their Spartan Pro team. They're like, dude, we're going to fly you around the country. It was like this crazy thing. And in my eyes, I'm like, dude, I'm living the dream right now. Like this is everything I've ever wanted. I wanted to be a pro runner, but when that dream kind of faded out, it was just almost like, what am I going to do? Because I had put all my eggs in that basket. And, little did I know that, maybe all those years of running was actually prepping me for this moment right here in time. And I just ran with that, like I spent 5 years traveling the world, competing in Spartan racing. And in 2019, right before COVID hit, was kind of this launch of this new fitness competitions where it was even better in my eyes than what Spartan was, because I feel like I always wanted Spartan to be this like 50-50, like running versus strength.
Right.
And maybe in the beginning it was maybe not quite 50-50, but strength did play a factor. And I think just as the evolution of the sport, it's become more of like a pure runner's game. If you can run fast and you have good grip strength, you're going to do pretty well. You know, and I still kind of stuck my nose in there with, you know, probably some people I probably had no business beating. But like I said, when hybrid racing came about, Deca Fit, Hyrox, I was like, as much as I thought Spartan racing was for me, this felt even more like it was for me, because I could actually go back to training the way that I've always enjoyed training. And that's, you know, a good mixture of everything rather than just kind of a strict running program.
Yeah.
And I think also too, as I'm getting older, it's kind of given me just like longevity in a way. I feel like I can stay healthier. I don't need to worry about putting in 80 miles a week. I can get my volume on machines like rower, skier, assault bike. So it's keeping me healthy. It's keeping me fit. And I'm competing at a high level in it. So it's just like, yeah, it's pretty cool right now.
When you found this success and things started clicking and you found your spot in the world of athletics, what was your dad's reaction? Somebody that kind of came from that world, like, was he just over the moon and like so pumped at what you found?
For sure. Yeah, he didn't come to that first Spartan race in Virginia because, like I said, I was very unsure about how it was going to go. But the second one, I brought him down there to South Carolina with me, and he was there waiting at the finish line. And I still remember to this day, I came across that line and I was like beating my chest like a gorilla. And I just see my dad over just like right across that metal barrier that they placed there at the finish line. And like, he was like tearing up, and that was just like a really special moment. It sort of felt like, I don't know if I've always been searching for validity and things like that from my pops. But I felt like in that moment, like he was proud and maybe felt like I didn't waste all those years away where I was like chasing this dream of being a runner. You know, maybe that just wasn't in the cards. Like this was now my purpose. And it was cool to share that moment with my dad. And yeah, he's been my biggest supporter since day one. I credit him to like a lot of the success that I've had. Not just like for getting me into the sport of just like running and endurance and strength training, but just being a good role model. Like he was one of the hardest workers I've ever known. I mean, he worked 2 full-time jobs a lot of the time growing up so that, you know, me and my 3 sisters could, you know, have everything we wanted. And, you know, maybe it feels nice to know that some of that's like that work ethic is kind of rubbed off on me. So,
yeah, that sounds, that's a great story. I'm like almost tearing up to hear, but, that sounds familiar because you yourself kind of have that hardworking mentality. Like maybe not everyone realizes it, but you also work a full-time job on top of your career as an athlete. So tell me a little bit about that. What's like the schedule like for Ryan Kent in terms of work and training?
yeah. So, full disclosure, I will admit that, at the end of August, like beginning of September, I did take a leave of absence from UPS. I was a UPS driver for the last like 3 years. I guess I'll back up, but like in the beginning, pretty much right around when I was a full-time Spartan athlete up until around COVID hit. And obviously everything for everyone kind of, you know, hit the fan, and pretty much all of my sponsors dropped me except for one, which was Athletic Brewing. There were no more competitions for me to go make prize money. And sorry, I got a garage opening behind me, and I'm not sure why that's happening.
Drum roll, let's see who it is.
My mother-in-law just came home, so
hopefully she brought some goodies.
Oh yeah, she's got like a ton of groceries.
Yes.
But what were we talking about?
That's a good question.
Audience, help us out.
COVID. So after COVID, you've got this kind of period where things are getting tougher to be a full-time athlete, sponsorships, there's no
Right.
race.
Yep.
Your reaction was like, all right, I got to go find a job that's more suitable for a pandemic.
Right. And we had our son getting ready to be born as well. So I'm thinking about costs for, having a baby and all these things. And, it was just one of those things where I had to step up, and I couldn't put like my financial situation in someone else's hands. So I just took it into my own hands and went and applied for a job at UPS. And typically becoming a driver is actually really, really difficult. You have to spend usually a couple years inside the building, loading the trucks before they allow you to get in them and drive them. But because of the demand during COVID, they were allowing people to just like come in off the streets. And that was kind of how I kind of slid in there. And I remember thinking, I'm like, this is a lot. Like I'm taking on a lot right now, because I was still training as if I were a full-time athlete, but now I have this full-time job on top of that. So just kind of juggling everything was really hard. And then we had our son a few months after I had started working, and then things just became like more and more problematic. And it honestly, like it was really, really hard. And I feel like I did a really good job for a few years, and then eventually everything just kind of caught up to me. I feel like I was prioritizing my day really well. I was getting up super early to train before work. We're talking like 4:30. And I'd try to give myself about 3 hours to get in everything I needed to get in for the day before I would go to work. And then, typical work day could last. I mean, sometimes I never got home until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And then sometimes I might have another workout, but then I also have to be dad, have to be husband. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I did a really good job for about 2 years. And then eventually everything just kind of started to slowly, like maybe, everything, I'm competing really well, but I don't feel like I'm performing well as dad, or, something like I could never get everything firing at the same time. Like I wasn't a good husband, a good father, a good athlete, a good employee, all at the same time. Like if I was good at something else had to drop. And that was when I, went to my boss and told him that I would just like to take a step back from work and just kind of get myself centered again, because I sort of I don't know, man. I just kind of lost who I was. And that just comes from being so deep in the grind. And I just wanted to take some time for myself to just step back and really appreciate, what's in front of me, because I wasn't seeing Basin a lot. There were times I would go to work in the morning and he would still be asleep, and then I'd come home at the end of the night and he'd already be in bed. And I was just like, dude, this is not good. So, like I said, I balanced it really, really well for a small amount of time, but eventually it caught up to me, and now I'm trying to work. I'm slowly going to start introducing work like back into the schedule. I'm still employed with UPS. I'm going to try to get on like an abbreviated schedule for some time, at least while I'm still competing, so I don't stretch myself too thin. But
it's an interesting thing that you don't, we have these like curated lives, and you don't see any of this like behind the scenes. Like if someone was like, looking at Ryan Kent's life through like a 4-inch by 2-inch screen, it's like, oh, everything's going perfect. He's like running really well, and he's got a job, and he's got a beautiful family, and everything's great. And then you don't really get to see that piece of it when it's just this curated small version of your life.
For sure. Yeah, man. And it can be done. Like if you can prioritize your day, like it can be done. It's just really hard. It is hard for sure. And, I understand that I don't have many years left in terms of just competing at a high level. I hope that I have at least like 5 or 6 more good years in me. And I know I want to keep pursuing my athletic career. My wife wants me to keep pursuing that because she knows that it really does make me happy. And we both understand that there will come a time when I will have to close this chapter and move on. But right now we're still pushing forward with it.
So in terms of athletic stuff for this year, obviously we're kind of dabbling in it there. But you're mainly focused on hybrid racing. And now it's like, I swear in the last 6 months, there's so many people that use the term hybrid now, even like big names like Nick Bear's new platform is called Hybrid something. And, everyone's using that term now. So what is hybrid athletics and how does it differ from like the running world?
Yeah, I even named my coaching website Train More Hybrid.
It's going to get 1,000 hits.
Yeah. Yeah, the training is very, it's similar in terms of how much volume like I was putting in when I was a runner, but I'm just distributing it in different ways. It's a good dose of running. Running's like the foundation of it all. But then I also do strength training and cross training. That's really what it is. It's strength training, it's cross training, and it's running. And then kind of just like blending those three components together.
And for you, how important do like the days in the mountains and the time out in nature, and how do those play into your training as like a hybrid athlete?
Yeah, that's huge for me. I prefer, there's a lot of people out there who question like why I run so much in the mountains, and because Deca Fit and Hyrox is on flat concrete, you could get by with running on a sidewalk, flat terrain, like you'd probably get the job done. But for me, there are some physical benefits I feel from running on the trails in the mountains. I like the power that I get from running on trails, how it just kind of beats up my body. I like that it kind of it makes me bulletproof, really, from a physical standpoint. But mentally, it's just it's like when I can escape from everything, the stress, the anxiety, the feeling of just being overwhelmed sometimes. Like I really find my peace when I'm in the woods running on trails versus running down, your neighborhood sidewalk or, through the city or whatever. This training block that I've been prepping for the Deca World Championships, I've been driving out into the mountains 3 or 4 days a week. I have great trails right here that I can go on at my house. But it's not like wooded terrain. Everything's very exposed. But I really wanted to enjoy myself during this training block a lot more. Also, I was bumping up my volume quite a bit too. So yeah, I've been making, 45-minute to 1 hour drives 3 or 4 days a week just to go get, lost in the middle of nowhere. I'll go like on the All Trails app and, search for trails, and, I'll find a spot that I really like and just go out there and just like, yeah, have a good run and, come back, a better version of myself.
Yeah, it's as beneficial for the body, I think, as it is for the mind, especially when you go to one of those new spots that you haven't been and you like explore the new area and you like find this totally new section that you've never seen before, and it just puts you in like the best mood and you come back glowing.
I feel like any trail runner has that feeling. Like if you go find a sick new trail, it is seriously like, it's the best feeling in the world. And I think it keeps training exciting too. If you're running the same routes constantly, you can do that, but it's just going to get monotonous and boring. You're not going to find inspiration in it. You're not going to be motivated to do it. If you have discipline, you'll do it. But like when I head into the mountains and, find a trail that maybe I haven't been on before, like the stoke is just so high. I could have so much fatigue like built up in my body from like a difficult training block. But if I'm like hitting a trail that I'm just super stoked for, it almost like you don't even feel that fatigue, just because the stoke is so high, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's that. And I think it's also the amount of different muscles you use for mountain running versus like road running. Road running, you have this like continuous repetition, putting like the same beating and the same pressure and the same cadence on the same spots, versus like mountain running, you're like jumping over a rock and then like going downhill and then a little scramble. And then like you're doing all these different little movements that are training your body and your mind in more ways than one.
I honestly think trail running, especially like hilly trail running, is some of the best form of compromised running that you can do. Like there's no feeling similar to like doing an exercise and then having to run after than like climbing a steep grade and then hitting a flat or a downhill where you have to like open up your legs. Like that feeling is very similar to doing lunges and then running afterwards, or wall balls and then running after sled. Like it's a very similar feeling. So I think that's another reason I do a lot of trail running, is it is the best form of compromised running without actually implementing other, domains into the workout.
It's a great point. I mean, like going uphill, the movement, if it's a really steep grade, is pretty close to what a sled push is.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like low vertical angle sled push, and then going right into a flat or a down, which is going to be, just like in Hyrox. For those of you who aren't familiar, you have to do a sled push, which is one of the most difficult workout stations for almost all athletes. And then immediately after, you got to run really fast. So it's like your legs are just torn apart, and then you got to get on your horse and take off. And it's like this idea of compromised running and how to train your body to be able to run after an anaerobic exercise.
Mm-hmm. And heart rate wise too. Like in a hybrid race, it's not like a running race, where in a running race, you're kind of maintaining a steady heart rate from start to finish. In a hybrid race, you're kind of like this roller coaster of a heart rate throughout. And trail running is very similar to that, because like I said, you're going to be climbing up a grade and your heart rate's going to spike a little more, and then you're going to hit flat and it'll come down. Then you'll go downhill and it'll go super low. Then you're going back up. So there's these constant changes in your heart rate throughout, a trail run, which kind of gives you the same physiological effect that you would get in a hybrid competition.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk now about zone 2 training, which is essentially this idea like staying like a 60% level of your max heart rate so that you can go and put in a lot more volume. But the reality is on the trails that we're running out here, there's some of them that are so steep and so rugged that you can't walk up at that heart rate. So like if you're running up them, your heart rate's going to spike no matter what you do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
You could be the best Wim Hof breath expert in the world. Your heart rate's still going to spike through the roof.
Right.
So
For
it's
sure.
it's an interesting dichotomy, like indoor races mixed with outdoor training. I personally, I prefer it, but a lot of people are like, that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do some indoor stuff too. But the trail running is just kind of like, that's where I build the durability and build the engine. That's really where I get it.
In terms of the DECA races, which is kind of the indoor version of it's Spartan's kind of fitness racing arm, what do you think has been the biggest reason there that you have set all the world records and kind of dominated the DECA space? Is there something that you have that others are missing, or what do you think that advantage was?
That's a good question, man. Maybe it's this underlying talent that I didn't know I possessed until this sport kind of came about. I've always had the engine to perform, but it just the highest level in running just wasn't going to happen. My body type wasn't made for it. But I've always had a really, really strong engine, good lung capacity. So now that we're changing up the modalities, and I'm on a rower and a ski erg, things where I can still utilize my engine, but maybe I also have like this natural ability to perform that exercise. But again, man, I don't know. Like maybe there's something in training too that I'm doing differently than my competitors. Like maybe I've just found a method of training that just really works, and I'm I forget the term I'm looking for here, but I'm adapting like really well to it, and it's given me great results. So I'm sure it's a combination of many different things. And really what I'm trying to do with DECA is I really just want to put it on the map, and I want people to respect like the athletes that are competing in these events, and not just myself. Like, there are so many high level athletes competing in DECA Fit. I mean, I could name off like 10 off the top of my head right now, and that I honestly believe are some of the fittest athletes walking the planet. And nobody other than, you know, the people in our fitness space, nobody knows who these people are. And if I can bring some sort of attention to the sport and give it some sort of credibility, I think that would be super cool. And that's really why I'm like pushing all the DECA events super, super hard. I've now held the record in all three at one point or another. Unfortunately, I haven't had them all three at the same time, but I've really devoted a lot of time and energy into focusing on these events because I just want people to take them seriously. And if the athletes competing in them at the highest level aren't taking them seriously, then no one else will either. So, you know, we've got guys like Rylan coming in now too, that, you know, is now pushing me to a whole nother level that I didn't even know was possible. So, you know, we just want to keep pushing this thing forward and keep it growing. And it's pretty cool to kind of be at the forefront of all that. So,
yeah, I think you're the reason I found out about it in the first place, was just like watching your videos. And I mean, I was with you, I don't know, when was that? A couple weeks ago, I did my first one. So that was exciting. And you just casually also broke the world record that day. Didn't even plan on it, but that was just
at altitude, baby.
At altitude,
Yeah.
exactly. Super casual.
Yeah.
So that was impressive. It was cool to see you and Rich go head to head and just see what that whole event was like, because I didn't know anything about it kind of leading up to that.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's still getting its name out there. You know, the same with Hyrox. These companies are pretty new. You know, 2019, 2020 was really when these events started popping up more frequently, especially Hyrox here in the US. They'd kind of established a market overseas, but they didn't come over here until 2019. So, you know, people are still kind of learning about this sport, and it's super cool. Like, it's already grown so much in the last like 3 years, even not just in terms of numbers of people, you know, registration numbers and things like that, but like time wise too. Like, for each DECA Strong, DECA Mile, DECA Fit, the time from 2-3 years ago to where we're at now is astronomically different. I remember when I first broke 12 minutes in DECA Strong, I thought 11:30 like was impossible. Not for me, but for like anyone. I'm like, no one can go under 11:30. And I just did 11:30, you know, 2 weeks ago. And, you know, soon enough, somebody's going to do 11:20 and somebody's going to do 11:10. And the improvement that everyone has made in this short amount of time has been super cool to watch. And hopefully, you know, we'll keep lowering those numbers too.
When is the DECA World Championship?
So that'll be 2 weeks from this weekend.
Okay.
So we're about 16 days away.
You're doing the DECA Fit?
DECA, all three. I'll do all three.
Oh, you're doing all three. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So just for people that don't know, explain really the difference between the Strong, the Mile, and the Fit.
Yeah. So DECA Strong is simply just the exercises itself. There's 10 exercises or 10 zones, 10 stations, whatever you want to call it. And you just do them in consecutive order, without any running in between. And then the DECA Mile is where you accumulate a mile of running plus those 10 stations. So to make that come out to a mile, there's 160 meters of running in between each exercise. So you would do an exercise, run 160 meters, and repeat that for 10 total rounds. And then the DECA Fit is the same concept, except you accumulate a 5 kilometer total for the duration of the event. So rather than 160 meters, you're running 500 meters in between. So this is where the endurance athlete is really going to, excel. Coming into this season, I 100% thought that Deca Fit would be the event I had the best shot at taking home the title. But as crazy as it sounds, I sort of feel like Deca Strong might be my best opportunity to win, which is honestly kind of mind-blowing to me because, I've been competing in Spartan and obstacle racing and fitness professionally since 2014, and I've been searching for a world title. It's no secret. Like, I want that on my resume. But I always thought that it would come in an event that had running involved. So if for some crazy reason I come away with a world title in a Deca Strong where there's no running at all, like it would just like, I don't even know how it would feel, just because running has always been something that I don't know. Like I always thought that would be a part of the competition that I would win, so I don't know how that would feel, but I'm going to give it a shot at all three, and, we'll see what happens. A Deca Strong athlete is going to be different than a Deca Fit athlete. But I think we're going to have quite a few guys who have a shot at getting on the podium in all three. So it'll be fun to see.
What's the order there? Does it go like strong, fit, or strong, mile, fit, or what's the order for the race?
Yeah, so it's going Deca Fit on day one, and then the morning of day two is Deca Strong, and then the afternoon of day two is Deca Mile. So it actually goes the longest distance to the shortest distance to the middle distance.
So there's a big strategy component there, which is you got to run the fit, which could fatigue you maybe a little bit, probably not, but it'll have some wear on your body. And then, your second race is the one you think you have the best chance at. So is there any part of you that's like, do I hold back a little bit so that I have a better chance in the strong?
No, not at all. I honestly think I've done this in training before too, leading up to this race, where I actually think I can perform better on day two, especially in an event where there's no running at all. I think my engine will be just kind of warmed up from the day before. I'll obviously have a little bit of fatigue kind of built up, but I do hard workouts. Like, the days I do hard intensity workouts, I'm doing typically a morning session and an afternoon session. So my body is used to doing multiple high intensity workouts in kind of a short amount of time. And I've actually, from experience, I've performed better in like an afternoon or an evening session after I've gone hard, like in the morning. So I think as long as I, take care of myself that night, get a good meal in, maybe sit in an ice tub and just like kick my feet up and relax, like I should be good to go. The one event I am worried about will be the Deca Mile, just because there will be some big time, not just like physical and like mental fatigue already kind of built up, but like your central nervous system is going to start to get a little bit fried at that point too. So just kind of getting to that high end potential is going to be really, really hard. And in my opinion, Deca Mile is honestly probably the most painful of the three. So to like have to put that at the end is going to be super, super challenging. But again, I'm super excited to just like test myself. Doing that battle bunker event this past weekend was kind of a good test of getting 3 hard workouts in the same day and just seeing how I respond to that.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to be okay. I think we'll be good.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm doing my first double, like Hyrox LA, which you'll be at, and then running the Spartan race the next morning. So I don't know exactly who's going to be there in the elite wave for the Spartan race, but I feel like LA always has like some pretty high level athletes. So yeah, I'm kind of testing that out myself and trying to figure out what does it feel like to go all out at a Hyrox, like your A race and then come back the next morning and try and run at like a high level. So
I'd almost rather do a Spartan race first and then a Hyrox.
Yeah,
Hyrox, you've done one, right?
Yeah, I did 2 last year and I did Worlds.
Okay. It just beats you up, you know. It has a similar feel to like running. I wouldn't put it in the category of like running a marathon, like that kind of physical fatigue, but it usually takes about a week to kind of bounce back from a Hyrox before you can start getting back to some good quality training. So you'll probably still be fine because, you know, the fatigue will probably take about 48 hours to probably set in. But probably midweek, you'll like Tuesday, Wednesday, you'll be like, hurt.
Yeah, I'm planning on just staying in LA and kicking my feet up for like 2 days after that because I feel like I'll be dead. Yeah, the idea is, so obviously I'm gonna have like the Hyrox quads, which like I feel like it's the only race I've been through where my quads feel completely shot. Like even like 50-mile runs, my quads usually recover pretty quickly, but Hyrox, they're shot the next day. So hopefully, because I think the elite wave goes first, so it's like 7 a.m. Hopefully you get that race, the second race in before the soreness of the first race sets in. For sure. I typically like to do about 200 meters of heavy walking lunges and about 200 wall balls every single week. That usually gets me in a good spot where like I feel like I have enough like built up leg volume to get through the race. You know, maybe like 2 days a week doing, you know, 100 meters of lunges and 100 wall balls. And then, you know, find another day throughout the week where you can knock out another 100 meters and 100 wall balls. It doesn't have to be like super long sets. It can be broken up into 4x25 meters or 4x25 wall balls. Just getting that volume in is just, I feel like a lot of people make that mistake. Like they don't realize how much volume, leg training volume they need to do to prevent not just like fatigue, but like cramping and things like that. So anybody listening, if anybody, you know, has a Hyrox coming up and they want to get ready, like definitely throw in about 200 meters of lunges and 200 wall balls every single week. That should get you in a good place. Yeah, I've been starting to build some of that in, and then I've been in the woods for a long time. So I'll just do like heavy pack carries and do like 20 miles a day and just do like a lot of like just beating up the legs that way, like low impact, but a lot of wear and tear on the legs. And I feel like that kind of gives me some residual fitness that crosses over into like the whole Hyrox world. 100%. I was doing some rucking, practicing for that Battle Bunker event. And I honestly think I'm going to keep rucking kind of in the repertoire now. Nothing crazy. Like maybe I'll do something like once every 10 to 14 days, maybe as like an active recovery. But I really liked what you just mentioned. It kind of just adds this extra element to your fitness, whether it's just like more leg strength and stamina or durability, time under tension. I really enjoyed it these last couple weeks. So I think I'm going to keep that in there. So I think you're onto something for sure. Yeah, I think the cool thing about all this is like we're all exploring. Like no one, like in basketball, they've been playing basketball for 200 years now in an organized fashion. Like there's a pretty good set of routines that we should be following. Like you should shoot in this kind of way. You know, you should take off on this foot if you're doing a layup. But with Hyrox and hybrid racing, it's like, well, a lot of this is new, and folks like Hunter and yourself are kind of like paving this way. Like, hey, this is what's working currently, but no one actually knows what the science is or what the best method is. So it's still an experiment. For sure. And if you talk to like look, Rich Ryan, who is another fantastic DECA fit and Hyrox athlete, he lives 20 minutes away from me, and we don't even train together that often because we're training completely different for the most part. We're both competing at a very high level in this fitness space, but the way we train is
slightly different. And I think that's pretty freaking cool. You know, like there's many different ways to skin the cat, as they say.
What is different about your style from somebody like Rich? Like what is something that you do that's different?
Um, I would probably say I do. Oh man, that's a good question. I do high endurance training with machines and sleds at low intensities like twice a week. Whereas I think most people would just go out for a run or something like that. I will, substitute like an hour or an hour and a half run that I would typically do. I would substitute it with, you know, rowing and skiing and assault biking and sled pushes and sled pulls and burpees, and still do like a 60 to 90-minute workout, but doing it in a cross training or strength and conditioning way. And you're still keeping your heart rate really, really low. I think I probably do that more than most of the other athletes.
Is that something that'll carry into, so for people that haven't seen it, maybe this is a good segue. You're starting your Train More hybrid program, which is kind of your, it seems like it's kind of in its infancy still, but you're creating your own programming so that folks can follow along and train in a similar fashion. And I'm guessing this is going to be part of that, is kind of those longer builds on, low intensity machines.
For sure. I think in like Hyrox for sure. DecaFit training and Hyrox training, there is a little bit of overlap, but for the most part, it would be a completely different training plan. I think there's big benefit to doing the style of training that I just mentioned, where maybe I do a 2K row and then a 2K ski and then a half-mile run and then 100 cows on the assault bike and then a 2-minute sled push. Like that kind of training at low intensities is going to carry over into an event like Hyrox. And like I said, it kind of keeps the risk for injury like a lot lower too. So you're still getting race specific training. You're just not beating your legs up with trying to knock out 80 to 100 miles like every single week. So
yeah, I think so most of my training, I'm still learning, right? Especially with things like the assault bike and the rower and the things that are like machines. Like most of my training has been outside. So I've been doing a lot of like slow, just long assault bike. And I've now applied officially to Guinness to try and beat the world record for the 24-hour assault bike record. So now it's going to be basically just like these days of slow assault bike for hours at a time, which I find has boosted my fitness tremendously, especially with the assault bike, because it's like full body. Like just holding like 50, 60 RPMs for like 2 hours is something that I never imagined I'd be doing and enjoying, but I've really been digging it.
if there's one fitness tool out there to get, it's that one.
Yep.
Nothing gets my heart rate higher than the assault bike. I mean, not even like sprinting like an 800 meter around the track. Like, if you do 50 calories for time, like it's just going to spike your heart rate like you've never felt before. And the cool thing about it is there's no, like, you're at some points you're looking for that fatigue factor that you would get from maybe doing intervals at the track, but you can do as many assault bike intervals as you want, and you don't have to worry about, taking the pounding or anything like that. And that's a cool component to hybrid racing as well. Like yesterday I did a track workout in the morning, some intervals, but then I came back in the afternoon and was doing like some rowing and ski erg and assault bike intervals. And I'm able to add on that extra bit of volume and intensity and feel just fine. Like if I went out in the evening and had to do another track workout, it would have gone like crap, you know, because I've already burnt my legs up to a crisp. But when you change the modality, yeah, you're just able to put in more volume and intensity, and pretty cool.
So for folks that want to learn more, maybe interested in like hopping on your training program, because yeah, that's kind of the next thing up for you. What would you say? Where can people find that or learn more information about it?
Yeah, you can go to my website. It's trainmorehybrid.com. I offer, you know, one-on-one coaching, to where like we are in communication like all the time. We'll hop on Zoom calls and talk about things. If we need to make adjustments in training, we can make adjustments. I initially wasn't going to do the one-on-one thing. Like I was just going to be like, hey, like if you have an event coming up, I will write you out a personalized training plan for that event, but we're not going to give you that extra communication piece to it. I'll get all the information I need from you to write the training plan, but we're not going to hop on Zoom calls and things like that. But what I found is I was still communicating quite often with my clients, even though I wasn't like charging for that service. So now I've just kind of done away with just the writing the training plan, and now it's all just like one-on-one coaching. So I have that available, but I also have a couple other just like workout programs that you can purchase on there. One, I just dropped the hybrid base build to get you ready for an event like Hyrox, a 6-week base build, something that you would want to do kind of at the beginning of your season and then kind of build into more intensity and more volume. This would be a program to just kind of basically get you bulletproof for the season ahead. So there's a couple options like that available on there, but yeah, you can check that out at Train More Hybrid. We also have an Instagram page at Train More Hybrid. So yeah, you can just check me out any there. Send me a DM, send me an email, Ryan at trainmorehybrid.com. But yeah, I'm around.
Cool. And we're almost coming up on an hour here, but there's a question that popped in my head now, since you're in that dad life area, that chapter of your life. And I wonder if you ever got this question before, but do you see yourself kind of pushing your young one or young ones into an athletic career or athletic endeavors?
Well, he's still too young right now. He is showing signs of being an athlete for sure. He has my energy 100%. This kid is nonstop running around. He's always throwing things. He's got an arm on him. I think there's a lot of potential for him to be a great athlete, especially, you know, as he gets a little bit older and sees me competing. I'm sure he's going to gravitate towards just like sports. But I would never, you know, I love my dad. I mentioned that earlier. My dad has been my biggest supporter. But I will say, when I was young, he forced me to run when I didn't want to run, and I did not like that. It wasn't until I got a little bit older that I appreciated what he had done for me. But I don't want to be like that for Basin. I kind of want him to just choose his own path, and if that's sports, if that's hybrid racing, like that's awesome. But if it's something completely different, I'll support him in that too. I think as a parent, I'm just really excited to just see how he just like develops and like what kind of things he enjoys, and just kind of support him with whatever he likes. So
sweet. Yeah, I got one more question here, but well, actually there's a couple in here. People got a lot of questions for you, but I got one question here, and that was somebody asked, are you interested in dabbling in this 3K Spartan that has been announced?
Yes. Yeah. I will say that this weekend at Battle Bunker, my obstacle proficiency got exposed in the obstacle course portion of that event. So in a 3K format where obstacles will matter, your ability to be fluid and fast through these obstacles is going to matter. That will be something I have to work on if I want to perform at a short course like that. My overall fitness was able to compensate for my lack of skill on technical obstacles in like longer Spartan races, because there was so much running in between that I could allow my fitness to make up for that. But in a short course, I would have to devote some time to getting well at obstacles. And thankfully and fortunately, I do have a friend nearby, VJ Jones, who has an obstacle course pretty much built in his backyard. I've got Fit Fokker, which is a fantastic gym out there in Brighton, which you know very well. They've got obstacles out there. But, you know, I told myself before 2023, like I've been telling myself I wanted to come back to Spartan next year and do some more events. And this was before they announced the 3K, but I think I'm even like more excited to come back and try it and compete like against some guys that I kind of miss competing against. You know, I've got my hybrid boys that I compete against, but you know, I miss testing myself against you know, guys like Ryan Atkins and, you know, Ryan Kempson and just all the guys, man. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, Ryan, I appreciate having you on. I learned a lot, and I'm super stoked to see what's next for you, man. I think big things are coming your way.
Appreciate that, man. It was a good time talking with you.
Yeah, well, we'll have to do this again sometime. Hit me up if you want to run in the mountains. And thank you to everybody that joined. We'll see you guys next time. Later, man.
Later, guys.